Everyone, do you have a panel that you've been just dying to use? Well, let's just pull out those panels and have a little fun today. If you have a panel that already has a border on it, you can use that as your guide. Otherwise, when you have these busy prints, you look for the repeat or find a middle focal point that you want to keep in the center. For me, it's a little red tractor. My son is obsessed with them right now, so I picked that to be the center and then measured out for 8.5 inches because I want to fill a 16-inch pillow form. Once that is cut out, I want to find a piece of batting that is a little bit bigger and then just a piece of muslin on the back. For this, it's not going to be seen, so I'm just using a scrap piece of muslin to go about 2 inches bordered all the way around. Make your little panel into a quilt sandwich, and then we're going to head over to the machine and just do a stitch around the perimeter. This is going to lock in that shape as we fill in the center and won't pull in the design on the sides, or else you'll have sort of this bowed design from those edges. So this helps locks in, but more importantly, it helps you find issues that might pop up with your threading or your tension. So for me, I'm traveling along and it just doesn't sound right. I did a sample piece and that worked out okay, but when I'm going on the panel, I knew something was wrong. I peeked underneath and there's that little nest. So just a reminder that a mess on the bottom is a problem on the top, and a problem on the top is a mess with your bobbin case. So I heard my tension disc get out of a line. I popped my thread back in and I carried on. And so I'm just using my hands. I like to quilt from right to left and bottom to top. That's easiest for me and worked really well with a sit-down machine. And while I'm doing this, I'm getting a feel for my stitches, for my machine. It's just a good little warm-up on top of just that added security. So as I got towards that last side, that sound happened again. My tension went out. It was a mess on the bottom. And then I finally figured out the source of the issue. My machine wasn't threaded right. It was only through one of these tension holes at the top. It should be through all three. So, I got distracted while I was threading my machine, and it's good to always look through the whole path when you're finding these issues. So now we can get on to more fun. Now that the tension is all figured out, our machine is threaded correctly, and I'm going to go through around every big shape that I want to highlight. So I'm going to start at the bottom, work my way up and across, and I'm starting with this barn, and I'm going to move over to the silo. I'm going slowly. A lot of people like to use their quilting gloves to move around, especially in these detailed areas. I have really large, long hands, and quilting gloves just do not fit whatsoever. So I use these HQ paddles. Plus, it keeps my hands nice and cool. And I want you to notice how I'm using them is on my fingertips. When it comes to this detailed work, I really want to have my fingertips in control of what's going on. That's what works best for me. Go ahead and play with your panel. You have lots of wiggle room here because we're going to go through these outlines again. And as we travel around, we'll just hop over to our nearest outline. And it gives us both a nice squiggly look as well as outlining everything. It turns out really cute on top of the texture that we add to the panel. So I'm done with my little house. I'm going to use the tree to outline over to the next area. The thread that I'm using is Glide 40 weight. I know for panel outlining, a lot of people recommend a 100 weight, which is very thin, or at most a 40 weight. But this 60 weight works best, honestly, for my machine. And I don't see a big difference in the project having a little bit thicker thread. I think it works out just fine. And I have an easier time working with it with my machine. So I got through the outlining of the bottom, and I just travel up and I keep moving around, and then I get to this truck, and then I have this little wall, and I'm excited to get started and start filling in shapes. With this horse shape, I want to show you that initially I just go all the way around outlining the horse. As I go through this panel around and around, I start filling in more details. I do a little wisp on the tail. I go up into the legs and make sure that I'm outlining up into the hip joint, and even on the mane, just a little bit of extra texture for there. But initially, I'm just getting a feel for the outline of things, where they're placed, what shapes I see. It's getting me nice and familiarized with this panel. So now that I've traveled through the horses, I'm back at this little wall, and now I can fill in where I see with these rocks. So for this little rock wall, I'm doing little boxes that you don't see too well. And when I got to the second little rock wall, I did a pebble shape, just doing little circles. They both worked out fine. You already have your dark creases there that you can see, and I think that's a good spot to start playing with these really micro movements and what you get out of them. Now that things are filled in enough within the objects, I'm going to start going through the landscape. What I do is I outline just the bigger shapes of foliage. I don't go in and fill in every leaf or mimic the branches. It's not a texture that really works for me in this panel. I like to just highlight where those areas are, and I think that's a nice look. It also fills in that within 4 inches of space that you need with your batting to keep it in shape. And so I'll just travel around from point to point and fill in just larger areas. That way the texture can really pop up through. And here is that finished panel and all the detail that I wanted to put in. I have the slats on that little barn. Super cute. I love how this turned out. And then I'll go ahead and flip it over so you can see what a mess this is on the back. So don't hold yourself to that high contrast level of art and detail. Look at these goofy little horses. So that's fun to have a look at the back and see how that turned out. But it looks so nice on the front. I hope you give this a try and let me know if you do. Enjoy the rest of your week.